Okay, here's a look at my favorite masterpiece figures in 2024. And all these figures that you see have all been nominated into my top 3 favorites for 2024 because, as you could see, all of these, they look really nice. But, you know, there are issues with each one of these figures, which I'm going to point out in order to rule out the figures, because as nice as all these figures are, only 3 of these can be awarded winners. So with that said, let me just let you know my criteria for judging here are basically going to come down to 3 categories. First is the aesthetics, not just how well they captured the toon aesthetics, but you know how well they clean things up. And then the second category is going to be the form and function, you know, such as how well, you know, they can articulate and things like that. And then the third category is going to be the engineering, you know, how well did they engineer the transformation and things like that. There's actually a 4th category, which is the cost, but I actually don't take that into consideration because I am actually fortunate enough to afford this. But I have to mention it because I know there are many other collectors that would probably like to have these, but you know, they can't afford it because some of these figures, they just cost way too much. And some of them, they are a little bit more affordable. So with that said, let's go over each one of these and then start ruling them out one by one. Okay, let's first start off here with Magic Square's version of Optimus Prime. And first, aesthetically, you could see they did a nice job capturing the toon aesthetics. Unlike the Studio Series 86, which has all that extra sculpted in detail, here you could see they kept it very simple and very toon accurate, like 2 stripes on the lower leg, the triangle up here on the back of his legs. I'm very familiar with all the details on Optimus, so I can, you know, speak to the fact that they did a nice job, especially here where they did not paint this yellow, which I'm really hoping Fantastic Model doesn't do on their version, and paint this gold, because yeah, this captures the toon aesthetics much nicer in my opinion. So aesthetically, Magic Square always does a nice job capturing the toon aesthetics, and like I said, I need to be extremely nitpicky in order to rule things out. So I could just say, you know, the back shouldn't have the headlights there. They should be in the front, but, you know, I'm just being really nitpicky there. And then just little nitpicky things here. I'll just also say proportionately from an artist's eye. You know, they know how to see things really well, like capturing portraits. You know, this looks like the person, this doesn't. I'm just gonna nitpick, like his torso area is a little too square. It should be just a little bit more rectangular, like maybe about a 1/4 inch taller, but that's being super nitpicky. Yeah, and I just have to point out a lot of the things. I'm starting to like this more and more, and reluctantly having to agree, this is definitely better than the Takata MP44 because the engineering on this, even though this is very panely and a little complicated, which is what Magic Square does, because they upgraded this to a masterpiece scale, for some reason all those panel pieces seems to work better on the larger scale. Plus, they did try to make some improvements, like giving you now ratchets up here. So they did make some improvements. But I have to point out all the little nitpicky things. Magic Square always has issues with the tolerance. Like you could see, the bicep swivel is really tight, and that's an issue because That's actually needed when you're manipulating it to transform. So it makes transforming it a little difficult because they don't do a good job controlling the tolerance. But, you know, all things considered, aesthetically, they did a fantastic job. They upgraded some things like giving you ratchets. The engineering for the transformations, it's not overly complicated like X-Transbots, and you don't experience a lot of things like having to bend plastic over plastic. So yeah, this is done really well. Oh, and I want to speak to someone who asked me about the die cast. I made a mistake because someone else also pointed out these wheels, they are also die cast. So I made a mistake. There is a little bit more die cast on this figure than just on the feet. So yeah, you could see he has die cast on his feet as well. Yeah, so yeah, all things together, this is a really nice figure. And this is a reissue, so this did come out in 2024. But, you know, this one came with that Starscream parts, you know, to replicate that scene where he was pretending to be Starscream. But the first version came with a nice Sideswipes jetpack, which was really cool. But, you know, this is what you get with the reissue. But anyways, he's definitely going to stay within my top 3 favorites. And then, moving on, let's continue on here with Magic Square. And I'm going to have to group some of these together. So I'm going to group Magic Square's Brawl and Swindle together, because obviously these guys, they're gonna form the Bruticus when we finally get all the Combaticons. But first, aesthetically, you could see they did a nice job capturing the toon aesthetics, which is what they always do. Some people complain it doesn't have like all this extra detail. That's really subjective, because for me, I like the fact that it's kept very simple to capture more the toon aesthetics. And some people like to call that a hyper toon. But yeah, that's kind of subjective, but I like that. So like I said, aesthetically, they did a nice job, you know. But in terms of the form and function, they did try to make some improvements, you know, by upgrading to Masterpiece. So you could hear they gave you some ratchets up there. They kind of re-engineered little parts here and there for the transformation. Yeah. So they you know, they're new to the Masterpiece scale. So, you know, it's kind of forgivable, but they are trying to make some improvements. But the bigger issue in terms of form and function, the thighs here, they don't function very well going up and down unless you open up these hip skirts, which kind of alters the shape. And then there are issues just with the way they designed it. I mean, it's this really weird kind of articulation. It's nice that they gave you ratchets, but yeah, and I didn't take the time to really analyze to see if that could have been fixed. I'm sure it could have. But yeah, that is an issue in terms of the form and function. And unfortunately, they did the same with Swindle, has that same issue. See, it's nice and clean here, but you can't lift it up unless you open up the hip skirt. And here, this one's even worse, because now when you lift up the leg, it compromises the look of his hips. So that's not too good. And yeah, I think they should have done something to improve it, just like how they improved back here. So the transformation on here is much easier. So they should have done something there. But back to the aesthetics. And I have to point this out because this really, grinds my gears. You know, they did not give us that nice like light blue for the window. And I'm upset because you know they know it. On the legend scale, their first one didn't have it. The second one, they painted the window. Their C version's better. And then what's even more upsetting is the cover, the box, the art on the box. They even painted that, you know, that light blue. So that's, they know it. They just really, that's aesthetically, that's one major issue. But also, if you see here, this purple, they could have been a little bit generous to use some of the paint to cover all that up too. They didn't. That's being really nitpicky. But like I said, I have to be extremely nitpicky with all of these because these all can't make it to the top 3. So yeah, there's an issue with that, and I didn't mention it here with the bra. But I'm glad, I think it's T-Man. Yeah, 978 also pointed out the same issue I have. You could see the top of his red mask is orange. And yeah, they could have easily fixed that because here you could see they gave you the nice swap out face for a Swindle. The way they engineered it where you could just take off his faceplate. They could have done the same with his mask. And then they could just paint that all red, tab it in, and then the top of his mask would be painted red. So that's just really nitpicky things. And then the engineering, yeah, how do I say this? It is complicated and involved. It's definitely not as difficult as their legends. And more importantly, it's not overly engineered like X-Transbots with too many parts, the quality of the plastic, having to bend plastic over plastic, you know, making it prone to stress fractures and breakage. Yeah, so that's everything I have to say about these two. And as nice as these two are, all the positives about it, you know, because of the issues with the hips and little things with the aesthetics here, these two, yeah, they're not going to make it into my top 3. So yeah, now moving on, let's group these two together. This is the Fans Toys. Let's move these guys aside so we can get a better view. Fans Toys version of the Aerialbots, and already there's some issues. But first, let's just go over this. And this is always going to be the same with Fans Toys. I mean, they do a really nice job capturing the toon aesthetic, so that's never really a concern with Fans Toys. And, you know, the nice paint finish, the quality of the plastic, the die cast, the little accents from the transparent red plastic, all that stuff. You're always going to get this nice premium look and cost to their figures. So aesthetically, yeah, these are done really well. That's why these two guys are here. But in terms of form and function, unfortunately, there are issues here with these two. So yeah, I'm sure maybe you already know, like when you transform it to alt mode, you fold up these arms, get him tucked in his chest. Trying to transform it back to robot mode, you can't because they didn't give you any slot for a spudger or anything. And yeah, that's not good design. I mean, the form and function. And the other one, unfortunately, a lot of people have this complaint. You don't get a waist swivel. You actually get this slight crotch swivel. So that doesn't work out so well. And, you know, you have to, I mean, it's kind of hard to, you know, judge this without comparing it to Zeta's. So Zeta obviously engineered theirs a little bit better. And I'm going to point out something I actually don't like also, which is the way they engineered the transformation here. To be able to bring this leg out, I don't like this. They're doing a lot of this. You're going to have to bend this long, thin plastic just to, you know, be able to pull this leg out for the clearance. and then the same thing to put it back in. That's not good. I mean, they're doing kind of like the same thing with X-Transbots. You know, it is better plastic, it is reinforced by the paint, but that's still not very good. I mean, they could have made a separate part, like with the hinge, so that this kneecap could come down and then go up instead of having to bend it. So there are some engineering things with the figure I don't really agree with. But yeah, yeah, it lacks the waist rotation. And Silverbolt, as nice as this is, I actually really like this Silverbolt. You know, it pretty much has the same issues because, you know, they are, you know, the other side of Superion's arm. But yeah, same thing, you know, there's some difficulty with the engineering, the transformation, the form and function. He also doesn't really have waist rotation, and yeah, it's really hard to say, but I have to be really nitpicky. All of these can't make it to the top 3. As much as I really like these two, these are not going to make it into my top 3 as well. So now let's come down here to the Constructicons. This is going to be kind of like a comparison. You got the X-Transbots and the Fans toys. So first, let's go over the X-Transbots. And, you know, I'm just really confused as to, you know, what some other reviewers had to say. So first, X-Transbots, as always, you know, they do a nice job sculpting the figure. I mean, it looks really nice. They do a great job capturing the toon aesthetics, both in robot mode and alt mode. So aesthetically, yeah, there's no complaints. But in terms of form and function, yeah, see, now I'm going to point out things that other people didn't mention. But, you know, first of all, you know, they always use so many parts just because of the way they engineer the transformation, because of all the stuff they want to do, like, you know, giving you butterfly joints and stuff like that. They compromise the integrity, the structural integrity of the figure. An example of that is you could see this green panel piece. It's a small panel piece that's holding up his upper arm, the tire, the lower arm, you know, all this extra weight. And it's supported by that one little pin. That's not good. And then when you look on the inside where the shoulders, you know, rotated on friction, that's also on a pin trying to support all this weight. That's also not good. I mean, it's throughout this figure in other areas, but I have to make that clear just to really make my point clear that their engineering, it's not really good. You know, trying to fold all these things up to tuck in, it's the same as like a lot of their other figures. It's just very complicated. But the way other people are saying, they acknowledge it, but they say it's not as bad as some of their other figures. See, they're trying to paint this as a nice figure by saying that, when the truth is, this also has the same engineering issues, just not to the extent of some of their other figures. But like I'm saying, these pins and stuff are other issues. And I'm going to also speak to this because this is funny. Well, first of all, you hear me complain so many times about their hands. Why don't you give us the thumb joint again? Because there was a reviewer, you know, pointing out that the thumb broke. Well, how did it break? Because, yeah, you're kind of shifting the blame to X-Transbots. I mean, they do deserve the blame because they shouldn't design it this way. I mean, they give you like 2 pin joints there, but what about, you know, the thumb being able to come down? So I know how that happened because he just thought it could bend down. He probably bent it, and the quality of the plastic and stuff, it broke. So I just have to point that out because, you know, I want, you know, people to be honest, take accountability for their things, especially if you're a reviewer pointing it out. I mean, you know, he broke it. But yeah, it's X-Transwatt's faults too. But just be honest to say you broke it because you bent it down when it doesn't go down. So yeah, there's another issue. I'm telling you, it's just, yeah, that really outweighs the nice aesthetics. So the function, the engineering, yeah, there's some issues. So unfortunately, he's not going to make it into the top 3. And then Fans Toys version of a Constructicon, not the same character. First, aesthetics, you know, they always do a nice job capturing the toon aesthetics. It has that nice premium look with the metallic paint. The quality of the plastic is better, the die cast. Yeah, it's just the issue with this, with a lot of people, is that he's just a monster. He's just too big. And, you know, like I always said, you know, as long as I know why and I understand, it's a little bit more acceptable. And I think it's pretty obvious to everyone. It's because I think Fans Toys intends this to be Devastator. So having this as Scrapper and the alt mode, I think is just a bonus because he's really intended to be Devastator. So aesthetically, it's done really well. Form and function, you know, this is kind of what I think Fans Toys is going cheap, is they're relying on the friction instead of ratchets, but it does work. Unfortunately, like I said many times, that friction from the paint causes other issues like trying to tab things in, trying to untab it. And the way they engineered the transformation of here, this is really scary that you might break something here because it's really tight. You're having to apply force and trying to manipulate the parts. That's unfortunately not done very well. So in terms of form and function, there are some issues, just like this one also does not have waist rotation. Yes, it does. It has like a 5-degree waist rotation, but not significant enough for like what a lot of people like. So unfortunately, the form and function and engineering on this, you know, there are issues. So he also does not make it into my top 3. So now let's move on to Mastermind Creations. And here we can see you get 2 of their Protectobots. And first, let's start off with Hotspot, because this one, I'm also baffled. Like, people say so many great things about it. Well, first, before I continue, you have to take into consideration that this is all built in. So, you know, there's a bigger challenge with engineering the figures, transformation and stuff. And as a result, I think this one suffers a little bit because, you know, it's trying to carry all those armature parts for the leg and stuff. And the biggest issue is the feet. Look at those feet, just don't look proportionately right. He looks like he's on flat slippers or someone stepped on his foot and smashed it. But yeah, that's really one of the big issues. And trying to articulate it also into some dynamic poses is kind of hard because he's really heavy and he doesn't have some good balance on his feet. As you could see, he's kind of toppling over. Because these feet, yeah, I mean, the back, he doesn't really have heels and stuff. So that's what I'm telling you. As a result of the all built in, it kind of compromises things. Yeah, and I think I'll just speak to this now that, you know, as cool as it is, all built in, I really think this would have been better if this would have been a parts forming combiner. But anyways, unfortunately, there are some functional issues and engineering issues with this. But aesthetically, you know, it does look nice. It has the nice look. But yeah, there are just some issues. So unfortunately, he is not going to make it either. But their groove, And it's kind of hard to go over Groove without comparing this with the X-Transbots. Because when you compare it with the X-Transbots, clearly this is the winner. I mean, there's so many issues with the X-Transbots versions of their Protectobots. But this one, you know, first, aesthetically, they did a nice job capturing the toon aesthetics, the nice accent, making it gold and silver. And this is not their fault. This is the animator's fault. This, the way they designed his, whatever you want to call it, neck, collar, chest, whatever. Yeah, but it's nice that they give you the option that, you know, you can, if you want to have that toon look, you can extend it up all the way. It's a little hard finding this to tab in. So you can get this up if that's the kind of look you want to have. Or, you know, I think actually this looks a little bit too inaccurate in my opinion. Looks better proportioned. But anyways, aesthetically, they did a nice job, you know, with the nice accent and stuff. Now in terms of form and function, I mean, it's cool. Look at, they gave you some butterfly joints, which, you know, some people like that. I mean, to me, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's not really necessary, but it is cool. You can get some cool poses out of it like that. Yeah, so yeah, you do get some nice features there. But in terms of the engineering and I mean, there are other issues. So one, you know, like these are not really secure. They don't tab in. And I don't know if you know this, but the back seat is supposed to come down. It does snap in to form like his heel. Unfortunately, the tolerance is not really good, so it just slides back up. That's why you saw him falling back. So that's not done very well. And then other people were complaining about the handles. Yeah, if you're not careful, yeah, these are going to pop off also. And then the tolerance here, you saw me put it back on. There's little nitpicky things there, but they're not like really major issues. And then the engineering for the transformation, I laugh because it's hard not to compare it with X-Transbots. I mean, this is just amazing how they did it. And it's actually fun transforming this too. So, you know, when you take all of that into consideration, this is actually done really well. And so he is going to make it into my top 3. And then let's come here to the season 3. And these two guys are also going to be grouped together. First of all, X-Transbots, as always, they do a nice job sculpting the figure, capturing the toon aesthetics. I mean, it looks really nice. They give you some nice transparent red there. Yeah, but the other issues is their form and function. Well, form and function, I mean, you could see you do get nice butterfly joints, so you can get a nice pose like this. But at what cost? Because there's too many parts, and the engineering for the transformation is just another one of their many figures that is just, yeah, just really frustrating transforming. And if you're not really careful, you're prone to break it. Fortunately, I didn't really break it. I mean, there's another reviewer out there, I'll just say Tidarium Hanger. I like watching his reviews. I mean, it's not like watching great transformation videos, but it's still nice to watch because you get to see how you need to be careful transforming the figures and his thought process, how he's thinking about it. So I enjoy watching, you know, his reviews. But the main thing is you have to be really careful when you're transforming it because the engineering is not really good. And that's, again, because like I said before, because they're focusing on the wrong thing. I mean, oh, they want to give you some seats with the steering wheel, and then that compromises the integrity of the figure in robot mode. This is something people complain about. And then the hood opens up with the engine. But look at this. And you know those pins I was telling you? Look at they used a pin here, and unfortunately this is really loose. I can't really fix that now because it's not a screw. Remember what I was telling you with the long haul? It's a pin, not just on a panel piece, but it's this pin trying to support all this, the die cast, the foot, all of this that needs to be manipulated. That's not very smart. And as a consequence, things like this happen. So, and that's pretty much the same with runabout or run amok, fast or whatever. But, you know, like I said, both of these look really nice. That's why they're here. These are the only run amok, runabout figures in masterpiece scale that we have. So obviously you're going to want to have it. It's just unfortunate, you know, they really need to work on simplifying their figures. And I'll just speak to that real quick. You know, from a designer's perspective, if I'm going to design this, I would say, okay, let's take a look at this. Basically, the back comes up, arms fold in, and the front part retracts back. That's simple. But what did they do? They just made this overly complicated. And why? For the steering wheel, the seats in the car, the engine, the extra butterfly joint stuff. Was it worth it? Yeah. I mean, you know, don't take me like I'm hating on X-Transbots. I just really frustrated and have to speak to the same issue over and over again. But anyways, instead of rambling, these two unfortunately cannot make it. And then more season 3. Let's come up here. Fans Toys version of Scourge. And I laugh because, again, this is really hard to look at this without comparing it to X-Transbot's version. And to be fair, you know, X-Transbot's an older masterpiece style. So that's why Fans Toys version, you know, obviously does a better job capturing the toon aesthetics. And also, you know, with Fans Toys, you're always going to get that nice metallic paint finish, the quality of the plastic, the die cast, all that stuff. So aesthetically, it's great. But form and function, if you saw, that's not good. I mean, before you start producing a figure, you do product reviews and you go over it. And, you know, when they saw this, they should have done something to fix it. And unfortunately, this is not an easy fix. I mean, here, they don't even seal these parts. This didn't come off, but, you know, all the time you see on Facebook, Fans Toys, you know, this part fell off. Where does it go? It's because they don't seal it. I mean, it's nice they seal it so it doesn't have a screw showing, but I'm just saying you can't tighten this up because you have to open up this whole leg just to get to the screw to tighten it up. So yeah, form and function, yeah, these have some issues there. This one actually has a nice waist rotation though. But there are little nitpicky things here and there, such as the tolerance here. They're trying to rely on the friction from the paint to keep that stuck in there. So sometimes that comes undone. These are not done really well. But the engineering for the transformation, you know, even though this is a little complicated and it is frustrating, I mean, how do I say this? This is not actually really bad in terms of transformation. That's actually bad. So engineering for the transformation design's not bad, but form and function, there are some issues. So, you know, and it looks great both in robot and alt mode. And yeah, this thing, see, they're relying on a lot of the friction to hold this all in place. That's one of the complaints I have with Fans Toys now. But anyways, this, I'm just telling you my opinion. I actually like this. Looks good, feels good, both robot and alt mode. It does have some issues, but I'm going to have to say that, yeah, he is going to make it into my top 3. And then last, Fantastic Model, aka Fans Toys. Here's their version of a Masterpiece Ultra Magnus. And Yeah, first the obvious, aesthetically, in robot mode. This is a fantastic looking figure, and it's the same thing, you know, the paint finish, the die cast, the quality of the plastic, all of that. I mean, they did a really great job. Form and function, though, yeah, this thing is really an issue. There are some issues with transforming it. You know, you have to be really careful, because hopefully you saw my long series on this review. But you know, the pins versus the screws, you know, it causes a lot of caution when manipulating it. Yeah, so there are some issues in terms of the engineering. But you have to take into consideration, they took on a huge challenge, making the individual core robot transform. And the biggest area where this suffers is the alt mode. I mean, I have to agree with the reviewer said that this alt mode is horrendous. I'm sorry, I have to 100% agree. I mean, the alt mode, yeah, it's not done well. And to be fair, just to let you know, I'm not an X-Transbots hater. X-Transbots alt mode looks much better than Fantastic Model. So yeah, just to keep it simple, looks great. There are issues with the engineering. So unfortunately, I think he's gonna have to go. So in terms of my top 3, this is what I have. Is the Magic Square Optimus Prime, the Mastermind Creation Groove, and the Fans Toys version of Scourge. So now, out of these 3, I don't know, can you tell who the winner is? So first runner-up is going to have to go to Fans Toys Scourge. That's just, again, I don't need to repeat everything. It's a nice looking figure. The engineering, you know, is done pretty well. Has good amount of articulation. It's just, yeah, you saw some of the issues here. The stability of the ratcheted joints for the knee. These staying secure, just relying on the friction. But yeah, this is a really nice looking figure. So yeah. That's the second runner-up. And first runner-up is the Mastermind Creation Groove. This is a nice figure, but like I was telling you, there are little finicky issues here or there. You know, his heel, the handles. But yeah, the way they engineered this, it's really amazing. And it's actually really fun. So he's the first runner-up. And obviously, the winner is going to go to Magic Square. Magic Square's version of Optimus Prime. Because overall, this is done well. I mean, it looks great. It captures all the toon aesthetics. The engineering for the transformation, even though it is very panel-y, it is workable. Arguably better than Takata Tomy. I didn't even mention this, but this also, the form and function, that's really cool. So there's a lot of great things about it. But the one negative I think I didn't mention was that they did not give us a trailer to go with this. So hopefully in 2025, maybe Magic Square, will you give us a trailer? But anyways, that's it. Third place goes to Fans Toys Scourge. Second place goes to Mastermind Creation Groove. And first place goes to Magic Square's Optimus Prime.